Hi everybody, I am Husky Light, thanks for stopping by. Right, this is going to be a tough one. This is part 2, and this is about my experience with the false twin flame, and hopefully you can pick up clues in your own life as to what's going on if you're involved with a false twin, or if there's one around, or if you've encountered one before, and hopefully this will help you. Now, mine was extremely extreme, in the extreme, and I had a lot of obviously, being a false twin, there is a lot of interference, because that's what they're doing, that's what he's there for, he or she is there for in the first place, is to interfere and to try and stop you and confuse you as to who your real twin is and whether you should be with that person or not. And I've heard different stories of you know, false twin flames and things like that on my time doing this and counselling and things, and they're all a little bit similar, but there is actually quite a lot of, as I say, mine was very extreme, because I was directly involved with the dark side. Many of you now know that I am an RH negative, and if you're an RH negative, you seem to be targeted, and at that moment when you start to wake up, they're alerted to that. I mean, they're alerted with all twin flames, so I'm not singling myself out as an RH negative, but they seem to have a little bit more of an interest in the RH negatives. And at the time when I woke up, I didn't even know what blood group I was. I didn't even know I was an RH negative until a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, when I physically went and bought a test to do the blood test at home. And my son is also RH negative. I'm not testing my daughter yet because I don't think she's 13, she's not going to let me prick her finger, but I will do. But I'm very strong feeling that she is RH negative. I checked on her computer last night as a safety thing to make sure she's not looking at anything she shouldn't do, or anything, you know, being responsible while she's on the internet and everything. And I looked into her history, and she'd looked up tinnitus. And I said, "Why are you looking up tinnitus?" And she said, "I keep getting a ringing in my ears." It's like, okay then. I said, "It's not tinnitus, love. You don't need to worry about it. You really don't need to worry about the ringing in your ears. It's part of your waking up." And so she's very much waking up, but obviously she hadn't mentioned that to me, so I didn't even know until I looked in her history what she'd been looking up. But she's hearing the tones in her ears, like the tone I've got from the husky behind me. And you will see now that both dogs are going to come in, and they're going to start, because I'm talking and I'm trying to make a video. This is just part of, I should have made the video last night, I should have talked about it last night, but things distracted me, and the phone was ringing and I was getting texts, and today I was distracted again, so I'm only just getting to do it now. Now the dogs are going to want to fight. So things, you will notice that when you are on the right path, when you are doing the right things, sometimes darker forces come in and just try and distract you from it, try and stop you moving forward. When you get blockages and you don't know which way to go, you know, that's another form of just blocking your path and trying to stop you, you know, on the ascension process. And you thought of thinking to yourself, "Do you know what, this is too hard, I can't do this, I'm going to go and crawl into a corner somewhere." Never, ever, ever give in. I tried the one that I did yesterday, I tried to do that twice. I wasted about 2 hours messing about, but I was determined to get it out there. You have to be determined to get it out there. You have to be determined to stay on your path. This is what you came here for in the first place. So I'm going to talk about the false twin twin flame from my perspective, from what I went through. I met my twin flame in 2011, and I also met the false twin flame in 2011. They were both on the same dating site. I decided to go on a dating site, and my twin was actually still married at the time, but he was in separation with his wife, and he'd gone on a date which didn't agree with, and I wasn't happy about, and I sort of said as much to him. I said, I'm basically not talking to you while you're with her. And he waited for 6 months until he had split up, moved out, all the rest of it from her, and then got in touch with me again after about 6 months. And then we started seeing each other. But just before that happened, I had met the false twin flame, and I had started to go out with the false twin flame. Now, between my twin and the false twin flame, they are vastly the opposite of each other. Vastly, vastly different. So that will be one clue that you will have. They are not like each other at all. One of the things that greatly confused me, which I think is wrong in about some of the twin flame advice that is given out on YouTube, is that usually your twin flame is going to be either, 20 odd years younger than you or 20 odd years older than you. That's not true. Your twin flame could have come in at the same time as you. There is only 13 days age difference between me and my twin. The false twin, there was 18 years. He was 18 years older than me. That's where part of the confusion came in, because by this time, once I sort of got into things and I was waking up and I was realising I was a twin flame, and I started researching, and a lot of the information that some of the people were giving was that usually they're much older than you, or they're much... Yes, that can be the case, depending on where you are in the world and when you were incarnated, etc. But it's not always the case. I deal with a lot of twin flames who are not much far apart in age, and also you don't always have to be in a different country and on other sides of the world. Some of you will have chosen that as part of the twin flame journey, but that is not an exclusive or an only to the twin flame journey. So I wanted to put that out there. So that was causing me quite a bit of confusion to start with from the information that I was getting. Sorry, I've got really weird noises going on in the house now. Oh God, I will just knuckle down and get on with this. So my twin flame, there's only 13 days apart with us, and we only live a few towns apart as well. We're not on the other side of the world or anything like that. He's about a 40-minute drive from me. The false twin flame also lives in the same area as my twin, but a little bit further out. He was a lot older than me and extremely rich. I mean, a millionaire, very rich. This is another twin flame falsity that comes in as well. I seem to hear things about twin flames that, whatever position you're in, then your twin flame is going to be the opposite. So if you're very poor, then your twin flame is going to be rich, or your twin flame might be a celebrity or something along those lines. Again, that can happen, but again, it's not true. It's not altogether true. That is not the way it is in most cases. So I had already started going out with the false twin. And then my real twin came back into my life, and I've never cheated in my life, but I needed to be in both situations for a while at the same time while I learnt things. I say the false twin flame is not a bad person, but they are being ruled. They have been brought in for a specific reason. You are going to learn from them. You are going to understand things from them. They are going to help you to discern. But in the beginning, when you are confused, that is precisely the reason that they are there, is to confuse you, is to try and make you believe that they are the real twin. The darker side come and do this. The darker side will work through that person. The other person is unconscious. The dark twin is usually, the false twin is usually unconscious to this, but they have the darker forces working through them. And in my case, my twin, I found out was actually a Mason. He never admitted to being a Mason, but he was very much into Mason things and using them to his own advantage. I mean, basically, he was awake. He was very much awake. He knew a lot of things, but he was working them to his own advantage. He was totally service to self, whereas we are service to others. So he was a Mason, and Masons are not bad. They do a lot of things for charity. They help a lot of people. They are not bad. It's only when you get into the top tiers, the top above the 33rd degree of Masons, when it starts to get into the elite secret society of the Illuminati, etc. That's when it becomes dangerous. That's when it is dark. That's when they are using satanic rituals and doing all of that sort of thing. On the lower levels, none of that is particularly going on, and they do a lot of good. But at the same time, they do know a lot of our history, which we don't, and they do know how to use their manifesting abilities. They know about ascension. They know about other people waking up, normal people, the sheeples waking up. They know all of that, and they use it to their advantage. Governments know about it. Politicians know about it. They are all very awake in that respect. And my false twin flame was very awake, but he was having because of his connections as well, he was having the darker top people work through him. Now maybe somewhere along the line he agreed to it for real, but unfortunately it backfired on him. If he did it for real and he knew what he was doing, then it completely backfired on the dark side of things, because instead of being confused, I became more and more sure as time went on that he was the false twin flame, and I did more and more research on what was going on until I understood the difference and what was happening. But I had to have him in my life at that time because I had to learn. I didn't know what a Mason was. I didn't know what the York Rites were. I did not know about the Illuminati. I didn't know about the darker side of things. I didn't know anything like that. He was there to teach me the darker side of things, but at the same time he was teaching me that, and I was picking up on it and I was learning it. At the same time he was giving me a choice: go with the good and the light, or go with the dark. That was my choice at that time. If I'd have gone with the false twin flame, then I would have been totally service to self. I would have had a big house with a swimming pool and a sauna and a hot tub and 8 bedrooms and everything else you can think of to go along with it. But I would have been totally service to self and working for, unconsciously through, having the dark side work through me, and me probably unconsciously working for the dark side, the Illuminati. And that's what the situation was back then. They were trying to work through him. They were working through him, to take me away from my real twin flame and have me on their side, as opposed to the light side, the Christ consciousness side. So in my case, it was extreme because I was so asleep, it was untrue. I was drinking heavily, I was on antidepressants, I took drugs occasionally. I was very, very asleep, very asleep. I had been through a series of my family dying on me, people around me that I love. I got to the point where I didn't want to be, or I was scared of meeting and becoming friends with anybody because they'd die on me, because that was what was happening years ago. I lost everybody. I used to call myself the orphan because I just had the kids left. So going back to, I was going out with the dark twin flame. I was also going out with my twin. My twin was the sweetest, kindest, loveliest guy you could ever meet. Somewhere along the way, he changed as well. In the beginning, after maybe about a year and a half, 2 years of seeing him, he almost changed overnight. He turned into Christian Grey without the money, basically. But again, all of that was done for a reason as well. So when I was going out with the dark twin, I used to go and clean for him as well. I used to go and clean his house for him, because I'm so service to others. I used to go and clean his house for him, and obviously I was also having an affair with him as well. And there'd be so many clues and so many things that he said over time which led me to my understanding and my awakening. So my real twin was awakening me to the twin flame path, but the dark twin, the false twin, was also awakening me, but he was trying to awaken me to the darker path, to get me over onto his side. There is an extremely fine line when you first wake up, when you start looking into things that seem dark, which are not the numbers, the synchronicities, the history, Egyptians, all of that sort of thing has been used for good for years and years. The Illuminati picked up on it, turned it around a long, long time ago, and started to learn the secret, the law of attraction, how to use it to their own advantage, and that's what they do. Whereas we use it, as I said, for service to others. So I'm learning from two different perspectives here, and subconsciously, the darker twin, his guides and spirits are speaking through him, and I'm getting messages through, and I'm picking up on these messages that he would be having a conversation with me, and he would say things to me which would really prick my ears up, and he wouldn't really realise that what he was saying, but I would pick up on it because I knew that it was coming from his subconscious and not coming clearly from him, from his conscious mind. So anyway, I used to clean for him. I'm trying to keep this in order so you understand what happened. And I remember, I'll go through some of the examples of what was said and what I found, which led me to understand and learn completely that it was the dark. And there was sort of a compulsion as well to see him sometimes, because I knew the more I woke up, the more I knew he had things to teach me and things that I had to learn, and I knew that. And I knew that for a certain amount of time I would have to see him, even though I didn't want to, particularly, even though I didn't really like to, even though by this point I was nearly not fully awake, but I was getting there, and I knew that I needed not to be there. But I also knew that as part of my path, I had things I needed to learn. So I remember right at the beginning cleaning for him, and something taught he had a massive big bedding box in one of the rooms, and he'd gone out, and something made me look inside it, and inside it was one of these huge ships that you build, that you make, you know, that you glue together and everything, and it comes out with this beautiful ship with the sails and all the rest of it. This kit box was in there, and the name of the ship was the Union. So that was one of the first things. Also, whenever I cleaned, I used to go around there every 2 weeks. It wasn't like I was seeing him every day or anything like that. I used to go around there every 2 weeks and clean. Also, when I was there for a long time, for probably a span of maybe about 3 months, 4 months, there would be dead butterflies all over his house. I mean, all over his house. On the floor, in the kitchen, in the bedrooms, on the stairs. Dead. And they were red and black. Butterflies, like the Red Admiral, like the Monarch butterfly. And I couldn't understand where they were coming from, how they were getting in. He did live in the middle of the country, but it was not normal to have that many butterflies. I would clean up some days up to 10 dead butterflies, and why he hadn't noticed them and why he hadn't cleaned them, seeing as I only went there every 2 weeks, was beyond me. Don't think it even crossed my mind. It was just crazy. But there was dead butterflies everywhere. Now, I only got the answer to why there was dead butterflies everywhere a few weeks ago. Sometimes you get the answers through very quickly when you ask. Sometimes they take longer. Sometimes they take longer because Spirit needs you to be in a place, a balanced place, where you can actually understand and receive the message without freaking out, and to be able to integrate it properly. The significance of the butterflies while I was there, what the darker side were trying to show me, because this was all coming from the darker side working through him, was that I was programmed, that I was we're all MK Ultra to a certain amount, to a certain point, but that I was. But the significance of them being dead was that I was breaking out of the programming. I was breaking out, I was waking up, I wasn't asleep anymore, and I was going through that Kundalini awakening. So there was that. Something else you will learn if you have a false twin flame, or you've been involved with a false twin flame, is they psychically drain you completely. I would leave there completely just bereft of emotion, of energy, of everything. They would drain you. He did not even need, most of the time when I was cleaning, he wasn't even in the house. He wasn't even there. But I would be drained completely, physically, emotionally, mentally drained. That is one thing that you will know, that your twin flame, your real twin flame, does not do that to you. You want to step into your real twin flame's arms and stay there forever, because it feels like home, because it's unconditional love, because you belong there. The false twin, you don't feel like that at all. I very much resented him. I hated him to a point, but I knew also that there was a compulsion in me, that I knew I had not broken the contract with him yet, that I had to learn more things. Another thing that I noticed at one point when I was there, which was around winter, Christmas time, there was flies in the window buzzing around, just one window, downstairs window, He had massive bay windows, and there was flies buzzing around there, and I went and hoovered them up. I got the vacuum cleaner and hoovered them. There was loads of them in the corner of this window buzzing around, and I hoovered them up. And then when I went back again a couple of weeks later, there was another load of them there. Flies are not out in the winter. They're dead in the winter. They're not around. They shouldn't have been there. Flies are lies. I came to understand. I also understood very much after watching things like Amityville when I was younger and things like that, that flies are not good. Buzzing around your house in that amount of things. So that was something else that I had a lot of supernatural, strange things that went on in his presence or in his house. So there was flies in the window, and if you're going through something like this with a fault, you're going to pick up on things. With me, it was extremely extreme. When I started doing my readings, and I haven't looked on my website at that part of it, you can look at the analytics behind a website and it will tell you where in the world people have been looking at your website from, and the particular website that I use, or the company that I use for my website, if I go into the analytics, I can pinpoint it to a street where somebody has clicked in and looked at my website, so it can be pinpointed right down. Now, I haven't looked at this for a long time, because I remember looking at it a few times, and somebody had been looking at my website in the beginning, at least for the first year, 2 years. They'd been looking at it, and they were at the Grand Masonic Lodge in London. They were at one of the top Masonic lodges, so I knew I was being watched. I knew I was being monitored, and I knew somehow he must have something to do with it. He had 7 children, all grown up now. 6 boys and 1 girl. I remember he had a little tapestry thing of one of them when they'd been born, and he was born at 5:55 a.m. in the morning on the 5th of the 5th, so it was just all 5s. And he denied the significance of that, but I knew the significance of that with the double digits and the numbers. And this particular son of his was extremely famous in an extremely famous band, which I'm not going to mention. There was 2 of them, him and his brother, and they led an extremely worldwide famous band up until about 3-4 years ago, when they had changed to another one and they dismantled it. They had... Anyway, no, I'm not going to... certain things I can't say. And I'd also seen one of their album covers, which is a checkered board with the towers, the twin columns on it as well, which is very, very significant. So there was a lot, and they all went to Harvard University. They were all, and the false twin flame was involved with the royal family. He was friends with the royal family. In fact, he basically admitted to me once the truth about Diana, that she had been sacrificed and she died. He said she was a bloody humanitarian, were his words when I asked. And this was near the end, by the way. I was so ready to run and run and run at that point. That scared me, because I didn't quite know how, but he basically admitted it, that and we all know that as well, but the way he said it had me in tears for days. I was so... I can get upset thinking about it, but I was so upset, because sometimes you read things, or you read a conspiracy theory, or and you want to... There's a small part of you still that thinks, no, they wouldn't do that, that's not true, that can't happen. But yeah, it was. That was right near the end. I remember walking in on him once in his office, and he switched his screen on his computer, but before he switched it, I managed to glance at it, and he had some sort of natal chart on there. He asked me once, do I think there are secret organisations or secret dark factions of the government, etc. And by this time I was pretty much wide awake, and I just played dumb and said yes, I imagine so, but I don't know where they would be. He used to keep a notebook at the side of him in the living room, and I remember opening it, and it had all of his intentions written down, how much money he needed, when he needed it by. He was manifesting. He was almost, he could have been a dark magician, for all I know. He was definitely Masonic. He was writing down his intentions and that he needed, and which we do, but again, we do it in a light way, not in a dark way. So my dark twin flame, my false twin flame experience was extremely day and night, light and dark, yin and yang, in the extreme, because it took that in the beginning to wake me up, because I didn't know any of it, I didn't understand any of it, I'd never heard of it. It was extreme. He also, before I found out I was Rh negative, I remember him speaking about his ex-wife being Rh negative and the problem she'd had having children, the children, and the fact that he'd be prepared to have another one. So, and this was before I knew that I was Rh negative as well. It was one of the things that led me to take the blood test and find out after I'd split from him. So many different things that happened, things that were said, things that were, the main thing though above all of it was being psychically and mentally and emotionally drained of everything, and the sheer repulsion of especially towards the end of going there, because I already knew he wasn't, but I also knew as long as he had something to teach me, something to show me, I knew that that was also part of my contract to learn it, just as it was part of his contract to give me these seeds of these seeds of information. And I accused him of being Illuminati. I accused him of knowing exactly what he was saying and why he was saying it, and he always denied it, and he always didn't know what I was talking about. And if I ever mentioned Kundalini awakening or ascension or twin flames to him, he would just tell me it was a load of bunkum, and I didn't know what I was talking about, and he didn't understand it. And he was an engineer. He was a 33rd. Sure, he was a 33rd degree, because he was an engineer, and his children, all of them, were in the perfect Masonic jobs that they needed to be in. They worked for the oil companies. They were in a band, a top band. He was a construction engineer. If you look into Masonic and stuff like that, it's all, there are certain legitimate jobs that they want you to get into to earn the money, bankers, things like that, bankers, government, music industry, acting industry, Hollywood. This is where a lot of them go to, not all of them, of course not all of them, but so I went through extreme yin and yang to understand what was going on. And after I left, and my real twin knows all about this, and I would also have dreams of the false twin flame, but he was always offering me alcohol or money in it and trying to lure me away from my real twin. And I used to be able to, and I haven't dreamt of him for a long time, thank goodness, but I used to be able to get in control of my dream and direct it in a way which I could turn around to him and say, no, it's not happening, go away, it's never going to happen. And he tried for a long time, but he failed. And as I say, I think it backfired on the dark side. They wanted me over on that side and it didn't work. It completely backfired on them, because I started to understand the messages that were being brought to me by him, and I could see underneath, I could intuitively see the manipulation and the control and the mind programming that he was trying to do, trying to manipulate. But I'd seen the dead butterflies. That was the control breaking, that was me waking up, that was me going through the Kundalini awakening, that was my sign. I didn't understand it at the time, though. But by the time I left, I very, very much understood it. And it's something that, yes, I did speak to my real twin about it and explain and go through things with him. And that's taken a long time to work through as well.